Welcome to Straight Talk for Women Only. I'm Judy.
I'm Janelle.
And I'm Mary.
And we are here with our guest,
Sharon.
And tonight we're so excited about this show because within this show are several components of information that we know is going to bless so many women. And as usual on Straight Talk, we like to talk about issues and bring things out that are not talked about sometimes. And so tonight is no different. We're going to do that.
Yes.
And
before you get started, though,
yes,
I want to tell those of you that are watching us online that you can send in questions and comments, and we will be more than happy. Our guests will definitely be happy to answer your questions and respond to them. So please send them to questions@stfwo.com. That's questions@stfwo.com.
and we'll answer your questions right on the
Right
air.
now.
Right now. Our guest has written a book, Always Remember to Breathe. And this is such an excellent book, an excellent story. I cried reading it because it's just the way that you wrote it and just your heart. It's, you know, just a very
Heartfelt story.
Yes. But we wanted to start with, there were several things in the book that you went through an abusive marriage, you had an only child, then you went through a divorce, and then all the other things that took place. But let's start back with your marriage and what was going on at that time with your first husband.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I wanted to start out with something. I just wanted to read one little quote, if you don't mind. It is, "Life is not measured by the number of breaths we take, but by the moments that take our breath away."
Yes.
And this can kind of lead us into tonight's discussion. When we talk about marriage, we're so in love when we first meet our husbands. They're everything. They're wonderful, so you don't find what the flaws are until later on. At that time, my clock was ticking. I got married. I wanted to have a baby. And so I thought, this is going to be the guy that I'm going to want to have this child with. And didn't look at any of the flaws, looked at nothing, just thought he was cute and he's going to be my husband. So at that time, you know, we got married, we played house. I talk about it in the book. And we were very different people. I got pregnant with my daughter almost immediately, and then she was born in October of 1987. She was the best thing that I ever did. So I focused on her, not my marriage, because almost from the start, my husband was drinking, staying out all night, doing things that were not very productive in the marriage. He would go to work every day. He would provide for us, but it wasn't a relationship. So I put all of my energies into my little girl.
And why was there not a relationship?
I think probably because he was so focused on working and getting things. Material things were so important to him. And so I found that he worked so much, and he just really didn't want to spend the time at home. He was the oldest of 8 children, or I'm sorry, the youngest of 8 children, and I almost kind of wonder if he wasn't just a little coddled. And so everything was always about him. And I do believe he was selfish as well.
So when your daughter was born, did you think he would change? Did you think that would mend your marriage or help your marriage?
I thought maybe he would step up to the plate. I do believe he was very proud to have Rachel. I do believe he loved her very much in his own way. But he was struggling with his own addiction, which was alcoholism. And when they're in that, it's very hard to have the people that you love in your life. So I did think that maybe things would change. I always had hope. I talk about it in the book. I did everything I could to try to work on it. Things will change tomorrow.
How long were you married?
We were married for 15 years.
15 years.
I wanted my daughter to have a father.
Right, okay.
And it was all about that.
Did he drink every day?
Well, his drinking would come and it would go. And when he was sober, he wasn't a half bad guy. When he was drinking, it was horrible.
Okay,
So.
yes.
Yes.
Wow. So tell us, I was reading the book, and I know I'm getting ready to jump ahead, and
That's
then we
fine.
can double back.
That's fine.
But there was a part in the book, your daughter was a writer.
Yes.
As well, a journaler.
Yes.
And when did you find out that she was writing, that she started to journal?
Well, I always knew that she loved writing. She took accelerated writing courses in school, and she would show me some of her poetry. She would show me some of the stories that she wrote. Some of them would be 10 pages long, and I
Wow.
said, "Boy, you just really can get that story and just make it excellent." The words were beautiful on the page. So she had that gift of writing, and she loved to read. And I think it allowed her to get away from life. She could sit down every day. She liked keeping a diary. She knew I kept a diary when I was young. So she thought that that was very cool to have a chronological diary and to just write down what she had for breakfast or whatever that may be. So she started writing at a very young age, and she had thousands and thousands of journals. Of course, not that many, but I would say probably about at least 30 journals that I did find in her room.
Wow.
And if she was feeling a little low, I'd say, go to your room, sit down and write about it. And she would write, and it would make her feel better.
Now, how did that affect her with her father? Did she know he was alcoholic? Did she talk about it? Did she ask questions?
She did know. I had tried to hide it from her, and that is a difficult thing to do. So she would spend the night with her friends. She would go over family, to the family. She would do lots of things. I try to keep her out of the house when he was drinking. And I want to tell you, it is a juggling act to try to do that. She didn't know that he had a problem. I hid it from her until she was right about in middle school, and she picked it up. She said, "Mom, I know what's going on here. You can't hide it."
Was your husband ever abusive physically?
He was never abusive physically. He
Okay.
never hit me, but the things that he did
Said
do were
the words.
the words were unkind, breaking things,
Okay.
violence, just meanness.
Right. Okay. Not treating you.
No, he never
Okay.
hit me.
But he did. I think in your book you tell about one time he shattered a window or
He did.
something. He
Breaking
was-
stuff.
He would go and break things. He would go out onto the front porch and punch all the screens out, punch holes in the walls, get up the next day after being
Don't
on a
remember
binge.
what
and
happened?
Don't remember what happened and fill in the holes. Oh, it's another day.
Wow.
Wow.
So
Wow. That's
And were you confronting him or saying you've got to change, or did you talk about it?
you can not imagine what it's like to yell and scream at a person that's drinking. You cannot talk to someone that's drinking.
They don't hear you,
It's
do
never
they?
good to have a conversation with them. So I'd wait till the next morning. He didn't remember what happened.
Yeah.
So I'm the one struggling with it.
Right.
So when was enough for you? At what point did you say,
Yeah.
okay, I got to
I
get
ju-
my baby?
I just was to the point after 15 years where I said, enough is enough. I had worked on bettering myself because I was concerned about the money. So I went back to school. I finished my college degree at Wilmington University. I graduated with honors, and I was offered a position at the job that I'm on right now. And as I did my budget, I found that I was going to be able to live. I put a for sale sign up in front of that house. 6 months later, the house sold, moved into my townhouse, and started all over again. Never looked back.
Wow.
So were you divorced before you bought the townhouse, or
I
how did that?
was not divorced yet. I was divorced a few months after that.
And had he already left?
He had already left.
Already left.
He had
And you
already
told him to leave, right?
I
Or
told
how did
him he would need to leave. I actually had a friend that was a counselor, and she was a very good friend. So we met one-on-one. She said, Sharon, I'm concerned about your safety. I want you to change the locks on the doors. He's starting to do crazy things now. He hasn't done anything physically to you, but let's not allow him to do that. He's not going to leave on his own free will, so you'll need to change the locks, and you'll need to tell him he needs to go. He did. It didn't go over well. He did, but he did find a place to live, and it was much more peaceful in
Did
the
you ever
household.
try to come back, get
Yes,
you back, talk
yes.
to you, I'll change,
Yes.
I'll do this.
Yes, for years after that, he
yeah.
tried.
Wow.
Yes.
So when did you find out that your daughter was bipolar? How did you find that out?
Well, as years passed, I could see some behavior changes, some anger, some depression, sleeping all day, crying, just never feeling happy about herself. She was a beautiful girl. She was a wonderful singer, a wonderful writer, had everything to feel good about, but just was not happy with herself, never felt she fit in. I'd say probably I picked up some things right around when she was 13, but I noticed that it was a few years down the road even after that, probably about 18 or 19, where we really did see major, major changes.
And when she was around 13, you discovered that she was doing drugs or
Yes.
smoking weed.
She was smoking weed. I smelled it. That, I mean, it has a pungent odor to it. And she tried to hide and say, "Oh no, that's not. I'm not doing that. Oh no, I'm not." And so I eventually took her to my doctor and said, "We need to talk about this. I think she's depressed." So they prescribed depression medication, an antidepressant. She was not depressed. That's
When she
not
was
what
13,
it was. She was about 15 at
About
that
15,
time.
okay.
And we did counseling and we tried to work through the process, but that's not what she was. She was not depressed. So she was on the wrong medication.
Wow.
Yes. So she decided to try some other things that made her feel a little bit better, and that was part of the self-medicating. Very normal for bipolar. Bipolar disorder, typically women take 5 or 6 types of medications. And it can make them feel foggy, and that can make them feel unproductive. So she said, "I don't want any part of this."
I want to ask you, as a mom, as a woman, so you come from this abusive relationship, and then you find out that your daughter is bipolar. How do you process all of that? What goes on inside of you to say, it's almost like going from one thing to the other.
Yes.
How did you deal with that?
It's got to be the Holy Spirit. It's got to be God living in me. I do not know how I got through those 15 years, but for the grace of God. My family, my friends, where I worship, just every day having hope that tomorrow would be a good day. And if I couldn't be strong for my daughter, who was going to take care of her if something happened to me?
Right.
Kind of kept you going.
It kept me going. And I think as women, we wear a lot of hats. We try to keep the family together. We'll do whatever it takes. I did whatever it took. It didn't matter. I probably didn't sleep for about 4 or 5 years too, so we don't, because we just don't know what's going to happen.
And so during all that time, you really didn't know what was wrong with her.
Yes.
You knew something.
Yes.
Did you ever just think, "Oh, that's just the way she is. That's just
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
That's just her."
Right.
Teenage stuff.
Right.
You know, talking
Yeah.
about that teenage whatever.
Yeah, because when times were good, she was outgoing and fun. She was your best friend. You couldn't wait to be around her. She laughed, and she was so talented. She could sing. She would tell a joke, and you
was picking up your
just
personality.
light up the room. Oh my gosh, that's kind. And you just loved her. And then the next minute, where did this come from? I'm sick. I'm depressed. I can't get out of bed. And so the problem with bipolar disorder is it's very, very hard to diagnose. And sometimes, people that have it never really can be regulated. So, when did we find out? There was a particular counselor that called me and said, "Sharon, your daughter is bipolar." We did a series of tests on her. We know specifically that that's what is going on here.
How did you feel when you heard that?
I said, "What can I do to help her?" And he said, "She's old enough now to make her own decisions.
Okay.
She's going to have to be in talk therapy. She's going to have to take medication for the rest of her life. She's going to have to eat well. She's going to have to sleep." The only
Which
thing
are all the things that they don't do.
exactly
When they're
Exactly.
dealing with that illness.
Wow.
So for a person that has a family member, and
Yes.
here, of course, she's living in your house
Right.
with you, how did you cope, or just because it totally disrupts your entire
Yes.
existence, your entire life. You never know
Yes.
what you're going to hear next, what's going to happen next, what kind of phone call you're going to get, what this day is going to be like.
Yes.
Is this going to be a good day, a bad day? And it all is determined by your daughter and how she's responding that day.
Yes. Drama and trauma go together. And it is an episode of something that you can't imagine. I just think what it is every single day you deal with what you have, what's on the table. You try to work with it. Some days are better than others. Some days I threw up my hands and went to bed and said, I just can't do this. And other days I would work with her on it. I never knew what I was going to get, but I was like a chameleon. I had to adapt to my environment. And sometimes I just had to tell her what I thought she wanted to hear, to just keep the peace in the family.
Which happened that morning that you were cooking breakfast
Oh, yes.
and she came down and wanted cigarettes. And she kept after you and kept after you until finally you're like, oh my God, I'm going to buy the cigarettes just to shut her up.
It's true. And I think we appease sometimes our children, whether they have struggles or not, just to keep them quiet. I struggled with that because I felt so bad about buying her cigarettes. I didn't want to buy them for her. I did not. I am so unhappy that I did that.
But you needed looking for something to just settle this.
Way of
just
escape,
stop
so
it.
Yes.
to speak.
I did.
Like,
And I just finally said, you know what, I've just got to do this because she's gonna walk down there and buy them anyway to the store. So I bought them, and then there was peace.
Did you ever think that she was so demanding?
Yes.
She was a very demanding child
Yes.
and nothing was ever good enough. She always wanted more. Or I mean,
Yes.
did you ever think that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it too is we do entitle our children, especially if they're an only child. We give them everything. And we feel sometimes, I always felt because I was working full time and maybe didn't give her enough attention and she was a latchkey.
Feeling guilty.
I felt guilty. So I thought
Yeah.
maybe if I give her things,
So
that'll.
you overcompensate in other areas.
Yes, we do that.
a lot.
Which is the case that happened when she wanted the prom dress. Tell
Yes.
about that scenario.
I know you love that. I know
I
you,
like that prom dress. So
I know you love that.
Because guess what? I saw myself in that story. So
I know you love that, and I'm a shopper. You know, everybody that knows me can attest to that. And we were just talking about that at dinner tonight. How Sharon can buy something wherever she goes. But we were traveling, and we went into some boutiques, and we said, let's go get let's get a prom gown. So we tried all kinds of prom gowns on. Some of them were scary, and some of them were dresses that nobody would ever wear. Well, we got to an exclusive boutique on the bay, down in Fairhope. We found the most beautiful Vera Wang gown. It was beaded. It was creamy. It was perfect. She tried it on. I grabbed the tag. It said $800. I said, are you kidding me? I said, let's try a few other gowns on and see. Maybe we'll find something that we really love. Oh, no, Mom,
She
I
was
want that
sold
gown.
on that one.
I want that gown. I want that gown. Okay, well, let's try a couple more gowns on. Please, let's try a couple more gowns on. And then I thought, I'm not going to hear the end of it. She's going to get this gown. Then after that, I thought, you know what? I'm going to reward her. She got straight A's the last semester. She was accepted to college. She was accepted to 3 colleges, which was amazing. And I said, I'm going to treat her. So got out the credit card, paid the $800. She looked amazing. She was beautiful. And today, I'm thankful I did that. I still own that gown. It is beautiful, and I'm glad that I did it.
Is
Wow.
it the dress that she has on in the video
Yes.
on your website?
Yes.
Wonderful. I want to do this plug real quick. We are talking to Sharon Luth, correct? She has written a book, Always Remember to Breathe, and you can go to her website at Sharon Luth, that's SharonLouth.com, and you can see this beautiful $800 prom dress that she's talking about, and also find out more information about her and her book. And please do not forget to send questions and comments to STFW. Questions, it's live, forgive me. Questions at stfwo.com. Okay, there you go.
So we want this show to speak to you in a lot of different ways. Sharon has gone through terrible abuse in a marriage. and then her only child, her only daughter. She tells in her book all the different things that they did together, the closeness that they shared, but at the same time, there was this mental illness that she really wasn't aware of what it was until probably your daughter was, about 18 years old? And
Yes.
you said she was grown, or, make her own decisions when you finally found out. And for anyone watching that has a family member that has a mental illness, it can be horrible. It can be horrible. There can be such a struggle because a lot of times you don't understand. You don't understand. And I think even the $800 dress is a part of that because the bipolar and the compulsive behavior and never really seeing a price tag. It's just, I want this. I want this, So when you found out she was bipolar, though, was there a sense of relief that now you knew what was wrong, or what happened?
It's bittersweet, and I do want to say to the audience and also to anyone that's struggling with mental illness, with addiction, with any kind of alcoholism, please reach out for help. Please ask someone, whether it be your teacher, a friend, your clergy. Call me. Send me an email. I'll be glad to talk to you. Please reach out, because your whole family is affected, and I'm here to talk to you, and I love you, and I think you're important. So that is the one thing that I did want to say to the audience. A sense of relief is very bittersweet, because there is no relief when you know the person that you love is struggling, and you say, oh, I just wish that she could be like a normal teen and enjoy life and know how beautiful and vibrant and wonderful she really is. And so when you are dealing with these kinds of things as a parent, we want to take control of it. We want to just say, oh, get better, get better,
just
get
make
better.
it get better. Yeah.
And we hope every day that we wake up and shake it off and say it's not real. What I have found is the person that's struggling with this has to reach out, has to accept it, has to accept the care, and go to talk therapy. Find a Bible-based church, accept Jesus into your heart, get plenty of rest. You might think it's a crazy thing to say, but eat properly. And if you exercise and do all of these things, there are many people that are living with this disorder. And if you can take care of yourself physically, in a lot of cases that will help. And so I just say reach out, ask somebody, because don't struggle in silence. We do need a lot more help here in the state of Delaware for bipolar disorder. There is not enough help. There's not enough facilities out there. There's not enough counselors out there to help. So if you do help with bipolar disorder, please send me an email. I'd like to talk with you about that, to know that you're here to help.
Now, there's a part in your book that I really like, is when you met Lee. I thought that was a really nice. We like Lee. That was a really nice story.
Lee was the knight in shining armor.
Yes, he was. And it seemed as though things may have gotten a little better, even with your daughter, even though she has some trust issues and didn't want to really get close to him at first, but he broke through the wall. Eventually it started to come down. Did her behavior change? Did it get better? Did you think, okay, we're out of the woods?
I thought they had a good relationship together. We always got that "you're not my dad," type of feedback. But I do think that he listened to her, and they talked to each other. I caught him one time sitting in the kitchen eating Cheez-Its and talking to each other, and I'm thinking, this is good.
Because that was her favorite snack.
That was her favorite snack. She loved them. And so when I saw that, I said, this is really a good thing, because she didn't have a relationship with her father at that time. And so maybe Lee can break through as a friend and be there for her. He was hard on her. He did have strict rules, and he wanted her to abide by them because he loved her and he wanted her to do well. So I think that, that was something that was a light in my life, because he was my strength. And he was that knight in shining armor.
Blessing. Your blessing.
Yes.
It was what you needed because
Yes.
that was the area that you were kind of weak in.
Yes.
But he brought that to the table, so to speak, and make that balance.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did. And, you know, I always say that the heart can love again after going through difficult times. And I had to pinch myself a few times thinking, is this really happening to me? Because it was real. And he allowed me to be myself. And he said, you know, whatever you need, here's your space. Do whatever you want to do. I support you no matter what.
That's awesome.
And I didn't always feel like I had the chains on me with him. And to this day, we've been together for 12 years. And he was teasing me. He said, I'll be in the audience. And I said, well, it's for ladies. But he just has been
He
that
can watch our
support.
show, though.
We're
Yes.
rooting for
We
you,
ha-
Lee.
Yes. Everybody loves Lee.
A lot of men lead watch our show in secret.
It's true. He will. And I know he'll look at it. And I just thank God every day to have a true relationship. I know what that is now.
That was the answer to prayer.
Yes, the
Much prayer,
respect.
yeah.
And the one
Yes.
other thing I wanted to say to you about that was Lee got saved later in life. He found the Lord. And I always thought, I want to find a man that goes to church, that knows Jesus, that has that foundation, because after that, then we can build on it. So he did get water baptized and saved at a later age, and I am so happy about that. And I can feel good that he believes in God too. So,
So the drugs.
Yes.
The drugs. Let's talk about that, because she didn't stop with the weed, of course. And then the drugs got more and more. And tell us about Bastion and
yes.
what that situation was about.
Well, after she was diagnosed, she decided that she didn't want to stay in our house because we had rules, and we did not want her to be doing drugs there.
Right.
You know, that's a problem for me. And so she did find somebody that allowed her to do that, and that was Bastion. And so he showed her the pill world. Weed wasn't enough anymore. And her prescription wasn't enough anymore. She didn't like drinking, so that wasn't anything that she would use. So she did start using pills that were not prescriptions, that were prescribed for her. And I will say specifically, so you know, and that you're aware, if your children are showing symptoms of sleeping a lot, slurring words, their eyes are slit, they don't make any sense, and they're just not productive. You want to be very careful of Xanax. Oxycodone is another one that's on the street right now that's being used, and they think they're functioning, but they're not. But what that does is it helps them, so they think, to cope
Yeah.
with the disorder, so they love it. And so a little bit of Xanax wasn't enough. It had to be bars of Xanax. If you don't know what that is on the street, it's a huge amount of Xanax. It would kill a buffalo.
Wow.
It's huge. And so as they begin to progress with this, they like it. That's how they live. Papa Xanax for breakfast. and-
Because they feel like it makes them cope
Yes.
with their illness and with the tormenting thoughts.
Yes.
Because I know people that are bipolar
Yes.
that sometimes will say, I can't get these thoughts to stop.
Yes.
They're racing in my head and I can't make them stop. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm going crazy. I can't stop these thoughts. And then sometimes they can't sleep for days.
Right.
You know, and the thoughts and the manic behavior and, you know, it's
Exactly.
just, and it's really sad to watch a loved one going through that.
Yes.
And knowing you could be there as a help, prayer, support, but you can't
Maybe.
make them, and you can't change everything that you would like to change.
Was there ever a time that your daughter ever came and said, Mom, I just can't take it, I need help, help me?
We, yes, and often, many times, and we tried to help her to sign her into some of the facilities, and after 72 hours, she thought she was fine, and she would just sign herself
Yeah.
out and go back to
Couldn't
her
cope with
boyfriend.
that environment.
Yes,
And one thing I thought was so sad is that when you would see her
Yes.
and how she looked and the difference in her appearance, and this is your daughter that you've loved, cared for, and
Yes.
given everything to, spoiled her,
Yes.
made her life so easy and awesome and wonderful, and then you see her in this condition.
yes,
and that's so painful, so hurtful.
It is. They're pale and they're lethargic and they don't want to eat. They want to sleep a lot of times, depending on how much. And it's a progression. And so your coping mechanisms have to go in a different direction so that you just try to make it as normal as you think you can
Right.
at that time.
Yeah.
So our visits were very few and far between towards the end of her life. She didn't want me to see her that way, and I would try to reach out to her, but she wouldn't see me. So it was difficult for me, but through prayer and counseling, I had to learn how to accept that because, as the counselor said to me, it's her life. You're not going to be able to change it until she hits rock bottom and says, I need help. There's nothing that you can do. It was the hardest thing of my life. I cried every single day. It was just so difficult.
Did you think that, okay, this is going to turn around? You know, one day, you know, she's going to get better, or our relationship is going to get better. She's
Right.
going to get that. Did you ever have that,
Hope.
those thoughts, or?
I always had hope, and I have always believed that she was the most joyful thing that ever happened to me. You know, through our pain, we find joy. When we have that child, we do go through labor, and that's painful. But at the end of that is the joy of seeing that child, seeing her grow, helping her to learn how to walk, and just the progression of where she is in life. And she was a brilliant girl, straight A student, accepted to 3 colleges, writer, singer. But when she was in the depression part of it, and even in the mania, the highs and lows, it was very, very difficult. Did I have hope that it was going to turn around? I always did. I always prayed every day, God, please, you know, just heal her. Let her, you know, come around. Let her enjoy life. Something down deep inside my spirit said, it's not going to happen. But I thought it would have been later than as soon as it did happen.
Yeah.
You knew something was brewing.
I knew God was preparing me.
Now, question. Knowing, because you seem to be very, you know, wise in a lot of the areas of bipolar,
Yes.
alcoholism, addictions, all that stuff. But my question is, knowing what you know now, because you've learned a lot, you've got a lot of information, and you know, become more knowledgeable about a lot of stuff. Would there be anything that you, looking back, would do different?
You know, I thought about that question, and I thought that that was going to come up tonight. I haven't thought real deeply about it because I asked the Lord to order my steps on what He wanted me to do, and I tried to learn to accept what happened. Would I have changed things? No. I would not have changed my life. I would not have changed how I lived, what I did for her, the time that we spent together, the things that we did. You know, knowing what I know now, I would have probably tried to get her some better help. As I said to you earlier when we were speaking, I just wish that there were better facilities here in Delaware, educational facilities to help the parents, grandparents of young people, or husbands or wives, whoever it could be. We just don't have the education here, and still there's a lot of gaps.
So it's a lack of knowledge.
It's a lack of
Basically, that's
knowledge.
causing a lot
Yes.
of the issues that you had to go through because you didn't know.
Yes.
People who's supposed to know,
Yes.
thought would know, didn't know.
Didn't know. Alcoholism, anorexia, drug addiction, all of those addictions can be hidden under the bipolar disorder. So sometimes you are said that you are an alcoholic, but you aren't. You're bipolar. And so that's why it's so hard to be able to get a good diagnosis. Some people never do.
You know, it's
And get the right
amazing.
medication.
Yes,
That's
yes.
like a nightmare.
It's really amazing because as I'm listening to you, and it seems like it's really amazing how God works. You know, I'm just listening, and what I'm hearing is like, it's like God just allowed you to go through that whole thing that you went through, and like you're learning and you're sensing and discerning things that you didn't know at that time, but now you know, and probably know maybe a whole lot more than some of the ones that are in those agencies
Yes.
that need to know
Sure.
what you know. And and I just believe that God is taking what the enemy meant for bad, harm, devastation, is turning it for good for countless other people.
Exactly.
That God is going to use, because you have such a powerful and a very elegant way of expressing,
Yes.
you know, the details of a person who's addicted, a person with bipolar. And again, that's because you went through it. See, and that's probably why a lot of people can't express it, explain it, or understand it, or help anybody with it, because they're just dealing with a textbook. But
Right,
you dealt
right.
with it through the process.
Exactly.
So,
Firsthand.
Yes.
so
Face to face.
so it's just, I can just see what's going to happen. I can just see so many, because you got the answers, and that answer is from the wisdom and the power and the presence of God in your life.
Yes, ma'am.
It's
Amen.
in you. It's the greater one, and it's the wisdom of God, because you can look. I can't even begin to tell you. So I'm going to be quiet and let you go forth. But I'm just sensing all this, because it's knowledge that people have to have, because it's the people of God says, my people are perishing for lack of knowledge, and what we don't know is hurting us,
Yes.
killing us,
Yes.
is wounding us. So you have something now to give.
Yes.
This book is a gift, and it was cathartic for me. I really healed writing this book. The wisdom that I've gained has been painful. I wrote this book with passion, and when I wrote it, you know, some nights up at 3 o'clock in the morning, penning things down just that I could get the word out. The end result is that people will come to Jesus, and that people will realize it's not what I say is going to happen with my daughter. And there's a poem in here I would like for you to read. It's called God's Lent Child. A teacher that lost her baby gave me this poem, and I read it after I lost Rachel. And it talks about how that child never belonged to me to begin with. This was God's child. She's on loan to you.
Yes.
How could this woman say this to me? And as I read the poem, you got 21 years with her because that's what God said you were going to get.
Wow.
So you teach her, you love her, you dress her, you feed her, you give her everything that you can, because when I said on May 20th, 2009, that she's coming home, you stand ready because she's mine.
Yeah.
And that one poem, if you get my book and read it, whether you have a boy, whether you have a girl, it is so true. That child does not belong to you. It's a child of God. I've learned a lot. I've written this for you. I've written this so that you will be saved. I have written this so that you will say, God, you won't say, God, why me? You'll say, God, I'm on my face, I'm praying, and I love you. I do want to just say one quick thing, and I was thinking about this on my drive up. I live down at the beach, so I had a lot of time to think and sing and pray on the way up. So I just want to offer this out to you. Please say this along with me, audience. Jesus, I believe you died on the cross for my sins and arose from the dead. I now open the door of my heart and invite you to come into my life. I realize there is nothing I can do to earn my salvation, and I place my complete trust in you alone for eternal life. I chose to follow you as my Lord. Please make me the person you want me to be. Amen. If you said this prayer, you are saved today. Jesus does love you, and I thank you for that.
That's beautiful.
One of the things that was so touching in your book was before your daughter passed away, you had that experience at that conference where you totally gave her over to God. I mean, that is nothing but the hand of God working in you, that prepared you. Tell us about that.
Yes. Boy, that experience was something I, to this day, read that chapter in my book. I went to my women's conference that I go to every year in Sussex County. It's a wonderful conference. We all come together, and one of the preachers was carrying a sword, into the event. And I thought, what is she going to do with that? And it was a huge sword. And she came in front of the group of ladies and said, I would like for you to raise the sword over your head. And as you do that, be praying about some of the things that you want to give over to Jesus, some prayers that you may have. And you are a warrior for the Lord. And I thought, oh my goodness. She said, so any of you that have a concern, please come up, raise this above your head. We'll, use the anointing oil. We'll pray for you. And I don't know what brought me to my feet, but I ran up there. And as I was standing there, I was shifting my weight from left to right. How am I going to do this? I'm so worried about my daughter. What should I do? I can't do anything about this. And then it was my turn in line. I picked up that sword, I rose that thing above me, and I hit the floor on my knees. And I just said, God, whatever it takes.
Thank you,
If you
Jesus.
have to take her, I don't know what else to do at this point. I don't know how to pray. I don't know how to move forward. I don't know how to handle this. I'm weak, you're strong. Take it over. And then she passed away in May of that year.
Yeah.
That's really powerful, because it's almost
Yes.
like when you prayed like that, you were releasing your daughter completely
Yes.
into,
Yeah.
no matter what the outcome was.
Yes.
And you had that freedom when that sword just cut off
Yes.
anything that was trying to disrupt or come against.
Yes.
That release. That was awesome. That was awesome.
We have a question. Someone asked, did your daughter get saved? Do you know if she was born again?
Oh, I'm so glad they brought that up. That is a good thing. I didn't want to forget about that. I'm home today in my church. Victory Christian Fellowship is where I got saved in 1993.
Oh, yay.
So when I walked through these doors, I
Go
felt the
Victory.
power of the
Go
Holy
Victory.
Spirit, and
Praise
it is the
God.
victory. My daughter, Rachel, got saved. She was 5 years old when she got saved the first time. And then she got saved at a Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames. It was a performance over at
play.
Eagles Nest
Yeah.
Fellowship. She got saved again at 15. So she always knew the Lord. She wore a cross around her neck that I gave her until the day she died.
Wow.
And I do believe that, she did love God. I do believe
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Jesus said he doesn't lose one.
That's
None
right.
can be
That's
bust
right.
out of his
She
hand.
received
That's
Jesus.
right.
So that's
that was it
awesome.
for her.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's it.
Did you come to a point at that conference when you lifted that sword and, like you said, it's like, God, if you have to take her, was that release like, I would rather her go and be with you, Jesus, than to live a life
The way
like
that she
this,
was
the
living.
way she was living? And I know that's a hard place for a mother to get to, but it's almost like if they're going to live 30, 40 years like this, did you have that moment?
I just really felt, because I just didn't see a quality of life going on, that I didn't know that it would come back. And so at that time, it wasn't a relief. My insides were shaking. My knees were shaking. I cried. I felt just all these different
Was
emotions.
it almost just
flooding
like
me.
desperation, just a desperation?
It was.
Was it like just trusting God full-heartedly?
Full-heartedly,
Like,
flooding
all right,
me.
this is it.
Yeah.
Whatever
Yes.
you do, I don't know how this is going to
Yeah.
end.
Yes.
I don't know how you're going to do it. I don't even know the way you're going to do it, the when you're going to do it.
Yes.
I trust you with this. I can't do it anymore.
Right. It
Yes.
was. I said,
Yeah.
you are stronger. And I said, when I gave my life over to you a long time ago, I had to trust you to take control of what was going to happen. I have no control of what's going to happen with my loved ones, my friends. I just had to say, I don't want to see her suffer anymore. It's no quality of life. So it was that flooding going out. I just never...
Because you wasn't really thinking about her being taken off of this earth. It was
Right.
more like, God, I'm going to have to really trust you.
Yes.
Because I can't do this anymore.
Exactly.
The burden is too much
Right.
for me.
Take it
I
away
don't
from
have the
her.
answers.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
like, because a lot of times what happens is parents, they'll give their children to the Lord in prayer, and they'll release them and trust God, I'm going to do this, and then they take it right back.
Yes.
Through worry,
Right.
through fear,
Right.
anxiety, and all that stuff. But that day, if I'm hearing you right, when you did the sword thing and
Yes.
you released, that was a liberty and a freedom for
Right.
you.
Total surrendering
Right.
to God.
Right.
Because by that time your daughter was really heavy on drugs.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
it was horrible when you
Yeah,
would see her.
it
That,
was-
that Christmas that you talk about, that she came to the house with Bastian, and when you said that he sat down on the couch after dinner and had the cookie in his mouth and fell asleep with the cookie hanging out of his mouth, I was like, oh my God.
Gosh, I know it's kind of
That
funny,
would be
but it is. I'm just
painful.
I'm,
Jesus.
Well, I mean, I'm trying not to laugh, but I'm thinking to myself, I love my cookies too much. I
Right,
can't
right.
imagine them hanging out my mouth. And again, this is a subject that's very deep.
Right.
So I mean, we do have to sometimes find, humor
Yeah.
in
Exactly.
some things.
Yeah.
Because when I looked at my husband, you have to know my husband, he's a comic. He's saying to himself, you better watch that cookie because it's hanging out his mouth and he's
Exactly.
sleeping.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
did, again, you have to look at the lighter side of it and kind of, you do have to laugh at yourself. But I said, there's something wrong here. This
And
is
it
just not
shows the
normal.
realness, though, of the situation.
Yes.
I mean,
It just was not
you
normal.
see something like that happening,
Right.
something is wrong with this
Right.
character.
The word.
Really?
Yes.
What?
Really? That's
Well, it is. And you
And then you watch your daughter, your only child that you
Right.
have loved and adored, leaving
Yes.
with this,
Yes. As I said to you before, if you are not an addict, you don't know how they're feeling. So the alcoholic is in pain. That alcoholic's not going to be able to have dialogue with you that makes any sense. That alcoholic, drug addict, bipolar person, whoever it may be, they're a human being, they're breathing. God has created them.
Yes.
But you are not going to be able to understand why they do what they do. We can't judge. We can only pray and say, God, work through them. Maybe they can get some help, but they've got to want to do it themselves. We'll never understand it because that's not something that's in us.
right.
I want to ask.
Go ahead.
But I want to ask about the title of the book. Always
Yes.
remember to breathe. A mother's unyielding love, a daughter's diary, a God to trust. Why'd you name the book that?
Well, I had to think a lot about it. Titles are funny. You want to catch the person's attention in a couple of seconds. And when they look at that, think about yourself when you've gone through the most horrendous thing you've ever had to go through in your life. Close your eyes and think about that. What was the first thing that you had to do? You had to breathe because it catches your breath when you go through something traumatic. In this case, my daughter was a great singer. So I would go to all of her recitals and she would be getting ready to sing a song either from The Sound of Music or The Wizard of Oz, and she would hold my hand before the recital. And I would say to her, Rachel, are you ready to go on stage? Are you prepared? Do you know the lyrics? And she'd say, yes, Mom, I'm ready. And I'd say back to her, Rachel, always remember to breathe. When you take a look at the cover and you say, well, the part about a mother's unyielding love, I think we've talked about that
Yes.
tonight at length. We will
Yes.
do whatever it takes. We will die for our children.
Yes.
A daughter's diaries. There are 11 of Rachel's diaries in the book. She has written them from her heart. I did not edit them at all. Some punctuation changes, but those were her words. A God to trust. He's our foundation.
Yes.
It's who we come from. It's how we're breathing. We can only trust Him to help us. And that's where I am today. If I didn't have God, I probably wouldn't be standing up.
Oh, yeah. You'd be-
With that, because we only have about 10 minutes here, because I want to make sure that we get to the part. How did
Sure.
you go through after you found out she had committed suicide?
Tell
Talk
us about the
that.
day,
Right,
the day
right,
that you found
right.
out.
Well, she actually, just to clear things up, it was an accidental overdose. And when I talked to the coroner at length and spoke to some people that were around her that day, she had been taking quite a few pills all day long, and she ended up actually overdosing. And so, yeah, it was an overdose. She had not intended
Right.
to do that much, but she wasn't with Bastian that night. And actually, there were 2 other times that he told me that she almost overdosed. They had to get her over to the hospital. So he knew what to look for when she had too much. Unfortunately, the people that she was with did not know she had too much, and she passed. So that was.
And you were at work when you found out?
I was at work. I was teaching a class.
Wow.
And my boss interrupted me, and when I came into his office, I saw a police person standing there and a woman sitting there, and then they told me what happened.
Wow.
And, you know, I was just overwhelmed. But frankly, I really don't remember too much about what happened that day. I just know that, I don't know how I got in my car and drove home, but I did, and I called my husband to come home, and we both knew at that time, and we just... You know, we just broke down.
I have another question from online. Said, I am one of the men that watch in secret. And so he says, have you heard anything from fathers who have children with this disorder? What do they say from their perspective?
That's really interesting.
I commend you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for stepping up to the plate,
Yes.
because mothers wear all the hats. Fathers stand around and look good for what the mothers have done. I shouldn't say that, but you know what I'm saying. And I do there are wonderful fathers, don't get me wrong. I have not had an opportunity to speak to any fathers. I would be more than happy to speak with you. Again, you can call me, email me, whatever it takes. I would be thrilled to sit down and speak with you, because you know what? Fathers are in pain too when they see their children struggling. It's not just about mothers. The reason I spoke to mothers is because women have struggled over the years to ever get recognition. We have broken through in many ways. We sit at boardroom tables now. We own businesses. We do leadership things. We play roles that we never thought that we could do before. So as men, I am so happy to hear that you have questions. I'll be happy to talk to you personally. I would like to talk to more men about this. I don't know that they address these issues as much as the mother does. So yes, I'm here for you, and I applaud you.
Well, how did Lee address it? Because he was really
Yes.
the father figure in
Yes.
Rachel's life.
Right. Well, he was there very proactively, actually came to some counseling with us at the time, and, you know, spoke to her at length at what was going on with her life. There's only so much speaking you can do, because the actions have
Yes.
to then follow that, yes, I'm going to do something about this. So it's an action plan. He did everything he could. He was crushed. I never saw anyone break down like he did. To this day, he is hurt. He goes over to where her grave lies, and he brings flowers. He prays. He talks to her. He still calls her Brat when he drives by. Hey, Brat, and just has conversation with her. He knows she's not in there,
Right.
but he just is so hurt. You know, how did he handle it? Not well. It was difficult for him.
What about the birth father?
He.
Her birth father.
Yes, he did come to her funeral, and he did not handle it well at all. He is now out of the country, and so I am in contact with his sister. So we still have a very close relationship. In fact, today she sent me a Christmas card that my daughter sent to her mother. So I read that today before I came, and that really means a lot, that I'm still in contact with his side of the family. They still call me, and they still love me and embrace me.
Wow.
Do you feel like a sense of completion when it comes to the whole life story of your daughter? Do you now feel a completion with the story, or do you feel like I did everything I could possibly do
Right.
and this happened?
I do think with just a lot of prayer and speaking to my prayer partners, counselors that I know, friends that I know, and people that I surround myself with. I make good choices to surround myself with people that lift me up. I've struggled back and forth with, did I do everything? Maybe if I did this, or maybe if I had done that, or maybe if I had tried a little bit harder. And I've been told by my pastor that, Sharon, you did everything that you could, and that it was her life, and you could not live it for her.
Go ahead.
No, it's fine. It really is fine. And I think that is there a completion? No, I don't think it'll ever be complete in my mind. I am going to keep on going and going and going and fighting to help people to bring them to the Lord, whether they've lost a child or not. If they need the word, I want to bring as many people to God as I can. But I want mothers that are struggling with this, because some of them never get out of bed.
Wow.
I want them to please realize, go
Get
on,
free.
get free, find God.
Free people, free people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
One question I do want to ask was, thinking about it, when you went through your 15-year marriage and it was very dysfunctional, alcoholic the whole 9 years,
Yes.
did you ever have to go through counseling yourself? Because a lot of times if you're in an environment like that, did you have to go through?
When I was going to file for divorce, I actually connected with a friend who was a counselor and asked her if I could come in and meet with her a few times. And so, yes, I did go through that process of meeting her. What she took me through was a safety lesson. She said, be safe, change the locks on the door, and she gave me a list of things that I should do to be safe. She said to file for divorce. She said that I should find a safe house, and I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm staying in my house, and I am going to sell the house, and I'm going to move. And so we went through that process
So it was
of...
more safety than emotional.
It was really
healing.
more
So
safety.
your healing really came through the power of God.
Absolutely.
That was the whole thing.
Absolutely.
That's why you're so radical about get Jesus, get him into your heart. That's the answer, because that was your answer.
That is
The only answer.
It is the only answer for me. I would not be standing here if not for him. And when I get to meet him someday, I just feel like this is going to be where I said, I have served you every single day. You're my king.
Yes.
And then I'm going to say, okay, now that's my end of the bargain. And so when I tell God what to do, that's an amazing thing that day. And then I say to him, God, okay, where's my daughter? You promised me I could see her. So, and again, these are the things that work for me.
Yeah.
It gives me my strength.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so he always says to me, okay, just become, you're not going anywhere yet. You have got a lot of work to do in my name. I will let you know when it's your time.
Amen. Amen. That's right. Amen.
Sharon Luth, Louth. Please go to her website, www.sharonluth.com, and get her book, Always Remember to Breathe. I'm going to read on the back. It says, it's an inspiring walk of faith and trust about how God can touch your life in the most difficult of times. And she's gone through that, and she's poured her story out here so that some of you and some of us can read it and be encouraged by it and pass it on to others. So again, go to her website. That's SharonLuth.com. She has a blog. She has video of her daughter. She has pictures. Get all the information that you need at her website.
That's great.
Yeah, I want you to take a minute. We have about 2 minutes left. And just encourage maybe mothers or fathers that are dealing with children who are bipolar, or maybe they just found out, or they feel like they're out there. Would just look into that camera and talk to them.
Or any mental.
Any mental illness.
Challenge addictive behavior.
I actually, I'm going to read something very quickly, but I did want to say, as I said before, please reach out either to your teacher, your pastor, but don't give up hope. If you're a mother or a father, or even if you're a young person or older person struggling, please look up in your local phone book or online someone that can help you. There are agencies within Delaware that can. I am not a trained clinician, so the only thing I can give you is the Word of God, which is powerful from me. And I just want you to know that I do love you. You are important. Reach out to someone that can help you. Even get in contact with your medical doctor. I'd just like to read you just a quick few lines here. This is important. This is really something that I think will hit home for you. Dear precious friend, remember to always have faith. No matter what you are struggling with today, God will help you through everything you are suffering from. Love Him with all your heart. Believe that His love can set you free. You can go on. Trust in Him. He is your Savior. His goodness will help keep you strong. My friend, have faith and live your life for the Lord. He has a wonderful plan for you. My friend, I will leave you with Rachel's favorite quote. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Eleanor Roosevelt. Thank you.
Amen. Amen.
And we want to thank you for watching this show, and again encourage you to reach out. You know, our pastor here at Victory was in a mental hospital and got saved in a mental hospital, and we do get a lot of calls here, a lot of prayer requests from people that are dealing with mental illness or that have family members, and we are always here to pray for you, to stand with you, to see God's greatest deliverance take place in your lives. And we just want to thank you for being with us tonight and tell you that you are graced.
For everything.
That you face.
God
Thanks
bless
for
you.
watching Straight Talk.
Good night.
Bless you.
Bye-bye.